All right. So if you don't know me, my name is Chris. I'm on staff with Claremont Christian Fellowship. I would like to remind us about a certain group of people who appear regularly in YouTube and TikTok videos who deserve our sympathy. To start my talk tonight, I would like to draw your attention to a particular set of victims, the people featured in treadmill fail videos. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have any of you seen these videos? There's so many of them out there. They all basically go the same way. From the beginning of the clip, you can see it coming. They've got the treadmill going way too fast. If they knew what they were doing, they would not have it going so fast. The person does not appear to be the kind of Olympic level athlete who would hop on a treadmill going that quickly and run for 15 minutes or something. But they make a valiant effort. They may not be prepared for it. They may not even be dressed appropriately for it. They may have questionable footwear. You never know what you're going to see. But the end is always the same. The end is, at some point, maybe for a moment, they're keeping up. They're optimistic. Hey, it's working. And then they start to lose their balance. They slip. And in an instant, they're crumpled up on the ground onto the treadmill and then being launched backwards into whatever's behind them. I didn't put any GIFs on there, particularly because I didn't want to distract you, or GIFs, however you want to say it. I didn't want to distract you all with seeing somebody being hurt over and over again. They're kind of intense. But it's a whole genre. I think life sometimes feels like being on a too fast treadmill. Maybe the pace of life and expectations coming at us feel like they're going faster and faster. Or maybe we do it to ourselves. We take on too many things, and suddenly the pace is becoming to be too much for us. In the beginning, maybe those first few weeks of the semester where you doubled, triple overloaded, you feel optimistic. Hey, I planned this out, I'm well organized, it's going great. But then at some point, as it goes, it starts to become difficult and tricky, and you start to find that you're struggling to keep your balance or your focus. You move from being optimistic to being afraid. What happens if I don't make it? What happens if I can't do this or that? And pretty soon in the back of your mind is this sense of keep up, because we don't want a catastrophic failure in our semester or in any other situation. This is the restlessness that I'm addressing tonight. The sense that we're moving at too fast of a pace, that there's always more coming at us, or that there's always more to do, always more to achieve, and always more to acquire. And there's this accompanying anxiety of maybe we're not doing enough, maybe we're not achieving enough, or maybe I won't be able to keep up the pace and make it. We are restless people living in a restless world. Always busy, always doing, always consuming, even when we're resting. Rarely sitting still, rarely spending time with our thoughts, rarely just being. We are ambitious people living in an ambitious world, always trying to accomplish the next thing with honors, always trying to prove that we're among the elites, or at least that we belong. Always upgrading our resumes, our lifestyle, our fit. We're an anxious people living in an anxious world, worrying about getting that job, that internship, that grade. When we're not worrying about our own problems, we just turn on our feed and there's every problem in the world coming at us. Do you ever wish that someone would just turn down the pace on the world? I'd like to take a moment before I get too far into talking about this to have us share with our neighbors. It was not ideal for me to have us around these huge tables. It was pretty lame during worship, but it'll be useful now. Turn to the two or three other people and just share with each other, in what ways have you been experiencing restlessness lately in the ways I've been talking about it? Go ahead. I bet we could go on, right? I could sit down with someone and probably talk for 30 minutes about all the things that I feel pressing in on me. Is there an alternative to this restlessness in the world? Maybe. Yeah. Yes. Listen to these words. Listen to these words written by the Apostle Paul from in prison. He says, I have learned to be content with whatever I have. I know what it is to have little, and I know what it is to have plenty. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being well-fed and of going hungry, of having plenty and of being in need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Now, my talk is about finding contentment in a restless world, but people usually latch onto in this section a different part of this section. For some reason, Christians in modern America love Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. And it's a slogan, it's kind of everywhere. Sometimes you see it in some pretty absurd places, and it often comes with this sense of achievement. I may have had a t-shirt in high school that had it in some way on it, and probably somebody like spiking a volleyball or something like that, right? You get a lot of things like this. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? I can apparently hang from a mountain by one hand. There's a lot here about achievement, right? I can be the fastest runner with God's help. I can get that promotion. I can get that A in OChem with Christ who strengthens me. Maybe so, but that's not what Paul's talking about here. Paul is not going on about how God helps him maximize his potential and achieve all his goals. He's talking about God enabling him to be content, even in suffering, even while in prison, even when hungry, even when sad. He gets sad sometimes. Contentment goes against how our society operates. It is not very compatible with American culture and norms, and especially how our economy works. People who are content with what they have are not moved by ads or by Amazon Prime Day. People who are truly content with their appearance don't need all the latest beauty products. People who are content with their lives won't work themselves to exhaustion to get raises and promotions. Contentment works against everything our society is selling us. Instead, we're told to seek and chase happiness. Buy this car, go to this college, earn a lot of money, then you'll be happy. But happiness is just a feeling. It comes, it goes, just like sadness and anger. There's this growing research around happiness studies. Among other things that they're finding, one is that people, pretty much all of us, have sort of a baseline level of happiness, and like certain things can bump you up above that for a little bit or take you down below that, but sooner or later you're going to come back to your happiness equilibrium, right? And no amount of things you do in your life are going to change that happiness equilibrium. Maybe over time you can change some things. Do some counseling. But like generally speaking, chasing happiness does not make us happier. But if we want a happy life, we should seek contentment. Contentment gives us that sense of meaning, that sense of satisfaction, that sense of fullness that stays with us when we're happy or when we're low, through our ups and our downs, even in our most intense moments. And the cool thing about this, as Paul says, is it's something that we can learn. You can cultivate contentment. How do we learn contentment? I should say, can we learn contentment? Yes, was that Samaj? Yes, that's right, Samaj, we can. Jesus teaches about this in his Sermon on the Mount. It's a bit of a long section. It's actually the longest topic. He does a lot of topics in the Sermon on the Mount. This is the longest one he addresses. I'm going to read through it. We're not going to talk in depth about every part of it. Let me read the whole thing. It's good stuff. He says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow, nor reap, nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you by worrying can add a single hour to your span of life? And why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today, and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? Therefore, do not worry, saying, "What will we eat?" or "What will we drink?" or "What will we wear?" For it is the Gentiles who seek all these things. And indeed, your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring worries of its own. Today's trouble is enough for today. Let me stop and just say, how cool is it that one of the commands in the Bible is don't worry? Love that command. I love that that's a thing that you're supposed to do as someone following Jesus, is don't worry. One of my favorites. Also, one of the hardest commands to follow. So Jesus tries to give us some help, some things to hang on to here that we can help us get to that place. The first thing he addresses is food. How people of his day worry about planting, when to plant and when to reap, and how is the reaping going to be, and storing up their crops in barns. And this would make total sense in a almost entirely agricultural society. Literally, people's survival depended on making the most out of every good harvest and surviving every bad harvest to make it to the next harvest. They had to plan, they had to do their best with things, they needed barns. Even for rich people at this time, their wealth and their lifestyle was tied to the cycle of the land and the produce of the lands that they owned. And Jesus isn't saying here that it's wrong to do the required work of farming. Jesus is from that area. His disciples and his audience all know that if we don't do this, there's no crops, right? It's just what you have to do. But he does call out their anxiety and the ambition that has grown up around the need to do these things. It's easy to see how the need to do these things could turn into a fear around doing them, and then an ambition around doing them better and better. God knows your needs. God values you. So why are you so worried, and why are you so ambitious? Why does the prospect of bad grades make us so anxious? Do we imagine that a bad grade on this next midterm will ruin our future life and happiness? Is that it? Is it over? It's not how life works, not how happiness works. And more importantly to Jesus here, it's not how God works. When we've got God in the picture, Jesus says, it changes everything. We don't have to worry because God cares about us so much. God values us so much. Do the work and trust God for the rest. And it's not just about stress. It's also a challenge to our ambition and our desire for wealth and accumulation, because those also stem from a lack of trust in God. I want to make sure I get the best job and the best career with the best pay so that I'll be sure I'll have job security, so that I'll be sure that I'll always have enough, is based in that lack of trust that I can live my life and do my best and trust that God's got my back. Or this one resonates more with me. I've never been ambitious for earning a lot of money or anything, but on some level, the belief that if I don't have all these things, will I be happy? Can I do the things that make me happy in life? But here's the thing. If we can't figure out how to be content now, what makes us think we're going to be content later when we have all that stuff? There's a lot of people out there working real hard, getting a lot of money, who are not any more content. In fact, even upper class and upper middle class Americans are on this treadmill. There's some crazy high statistic of the number of even upper middle class Americans who feel like they are just struggling to get by. Not even middle class. We're talking middle class, like a fair amount of money in the richest country, maybe one of the richest countries the world has ever known. You can be in the upper middle class and still be like, I'm just making it. But it happens very naturally. You get to that place in your career and you do the things that people with that money do. You get the size house that you've always wanted in the neighborhood you've always wanted, with the mortgage that it takes to pay for that house, the car payments to pay for the nice cars that you always wanted to have, all the costs of raising kids and sending them to good schools and funding the lifestyle that you wanted to have with your life. And pretty soon, your lifestyle costs and the debts you owe are right there with the amount of money that you're earning. And there's this awareness, if I lose this job, or if I don't get that next promotion, we could sink. Our life could fall apart. And so people, they're still they feel like they're enslaved to their jobs, even though their lifestyle is like wealthy beyond what most people could have known and do know in most of the world. I think this gets us to what Jesus is addressing in the clothing part of this. He's not just saying, don't worry, you won't be naked, right? But in their day, kind of like today, but more so, clothing demonstrated a lot about your money and your status and who you were. In a very, very hierarchical culture, a very stratified culture, your clothes showed people what social class you occupied and how much honor they should give you in a public place. And so you might worry about what kind of clothes you could put your family in. Are we having struggle affording clothes that will bring our family honor? Will my children be ashamed when they go out? Will I be ashamed of my tattered clothes? And Jesus' argument here is that same thing. What God does for you is more than you will be able to do for yourself. This is the second thing that keeps us running on that high-speed treadmill, trying to keep up, right? If on one hand we're thinking about, how do I make sure that I'm provided the rest of my life and I have what I need for that lifestyle that I think I should have, the other part of us is worried about how people will perceive us if we succeed or if we fail. How do we measure up? Do we even belong at all, or is our imposter syndrome kind of kicking in? I need to perform so people will believe that I belong here. In theory, grades should be nothing more than a useful tool, right, to help us measure how we're doing in our classes. Are we learning the stuff that we are paying these people to teach us? I always forget that, right? You guys are the customers here. Like, you are paying, or you got some loans to pay, or you got some aid, but you are the customer, and they're supposed to be giving you something. And the grades are there to help you assess, am I learning the things I came here to learn? Which means you've got a lot of freedom, right? If there's a class where you're like, I'm just taking this class, but I don't actually need to know very much from this class, you don't have to get good grades in that class. It's your choice, right? And as Lorraine said a couple of weeks ago, very few of the people in this room are going to need your GPA when you get out of here. There's a few people going to certain grad schools where that's going to matter. And everybody else, all you need is the degree. And then to have learned the things that you would like to know for your life or for yourself or for your career, right? That's what the grades are for. But for those of us who got here by making academic achievement part of our identity, for holding within us, I'm a person who gets good grades. I'm a person who's going to go to a good school. I've already told my family that I want to go to grad school someday, or I want this job or that job. In my case, I already told people that I was going to be a doctor when I came here. And then you start to really worry, and you start serving that image, right? Do I hang with pre-med even though it sucks for me and I'm doing badly, just because I don't want to admit that maybe I'm not cut out to be a doctor. Maybe I'm better for something else. Jesus' response, even Solomon, the king with the most splendor in the traditions and history of Israel, was not as beautiful as a flower that God raises up in a field of grass that people use to fuel their fires. It's a field that's not that important, but there's more beauty there. What God does for our value is bigger than what we can wear, what we can show to other people through our little achievements or our failures. Our value in God is bigger than our failures. I'd like for us, I've been talking a bit, to turn again, and what I would like us to talk about with our neighbor, just speculate, we're not going to get super personal yet, but how might it change your approach to school or career if you were someone who did not worry at all about having enough money, or you did not worry at all about what people would think? How might you approach career and work differently if those were true? Go ahead, turn and share. I'm curious, was there anybody who was like, I would do nothing? It could be tempting even to think that, right? At least for a little bit. But most of us get tired of doing nothing pretty quickly, right? And there's something really cool about being productive and actually doing something to contribute to the world or use our gifts and talents for others. This is a total tangent, but I was actually thinking about this. I'm like, would this work if everyone felt this way? Like, there's jobs that wouldn't get done, right? Like, who would sign on to be like the janitor who cleans all the bathrooms if they could do anything they want? And then I realized, no, we'd probably do it really differently, right? Maybe if I worked in an office building and we were all working on some product, like maybe we'd share that stuff around. Everyone takes turns cleaning the bathroom, because we all want to work. We all want to clean bathroom. I don't know. We can talk about this. We can get all like socialist later. Let me tell you though about someone I know who is best exemplified in this approach to life. This approach to learning to be content and then working out of that and living out of that place of contentment. This is my friend Tom. I say friend, he's also been my boss at points. I met Tom when I was a freshman at Pomona, and he was a senior at Harvey Mudd. And he, in his time at college, really took in this message about trusting God, about being content, and about using his efforts and his resources for the sake of others, and not just to kind of pad his own security or wealth. And so he resolved that when he got out, he was going to live that way. And when he graduated, he intentionally lived in a very affordable neighborhood with roommates, so his living expenses were low. He got a job working as a systems administrator for one of the earlier internet provider companies, Mindspring, and worked there. And as he was getting his paychecks, he would take his living expenses out of his paychecks and then try to use what was left over to help other people and serve other people. And as he worked, he, like often happens, he moved his way up over time, and one company bought another, and eventually he was one of the lead systems administrators for one of the biggest internet providers in the country, Earthlink, and making a lot of money, but still giving generously. It was actually really cool to be his friend during that period of time, because at one point he got like a bonus from work, and he's just like we were all going to like the same church at the time. He's like, I'm just taking everybody out for lunch together, and he just took everyone out, or dinner. He took us all out for a nice dinner to celebrate his bonus, like paid for everybody. Really cool stuff, right? But when he got married, he and his wife chose to live in an under-resourced neighborhood in Pomona. So to love their community and get to know their neighbors and be part of working for justice in that city. And they decided to live on the median income for the city of Pomona. Pomona has a few rich neighborhoods and some very poor neighborhoods, and they chose to live on the median income and to give the rest of their money away to charities and causes, including he helped when he saw that the city government had no concern at all for his neighborhood or neighborhoods like it. He actually helped to fund and worked to get elected a new mayor for the city of Pomona. This is a person who does not care about his image. He does not care about the kind of house that he lives in, just as long as he's got a comfortable home. Does not drive a very nice car. Wears business clothes, but they're not the nice business clothes. They're just fine business clothes. But he has become anyway a person of great success and influence. Sits on a lot of boards and things like that. He's actually anyway. The thing with Tom is he keeps choosing to be content with what he has, and because of that, he's able to keep doing all these amazing things with his life. And this last part is really key. I think Tom is doing what Jesus says in that teaching: seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. The point of contentment is not just to be happy with less, it's to live for something that's bigger than ourselves, to live outward, being about God's kingdom work in the world, which is to love others, being about God's righteousness, which is to care about God's rightness and justice in the world. Having purpose beyond ourselves is part of what makes contentment work. It's part of what makes it possible. It's how Paul was able to be content even when he was suffering in prison, because he was living for something bigger than his own comfort or even his own freedom. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist and philosopher and a survivor of a Nazi concentration camp. He wrote a very influential book called Man's Search for Meaning. And one particular quote from the book has become famous. He says, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how." What is our why? When it comes down to it, what is the why or whys that we are living for that would allow us to bear any how? I think this is really helpful because when I say the word contentment, we might think of passivity, a passive thing. But contentment is not passive. It helps us engage in the world. And engaging in the world helps us be content. It's a virtuous cycle. I know right now, a lot of times what makes it hard to be content is the stream of bad news we get about injustice and oppression and violence and governmental dysfunction. It only adds to our feeling of restlessness. And there really are terrible, overwhelming things happening. I'm not going to go into them all. I just want to point out two, very briefly, but two really key, very significant historic things that are happening in our country right now. One, that the government is making a concerted effort to use violence, intimidation, and confusion in the system in order to eliminate immigrants of color from this country. It's a historic terror that is happening right now. And secondly, they appear to be laying the groundwork to interfere with the next election in order to stay in power and avoid accountability for all the ways that they're breaking the law and the Constitution in that first thing I shared. Now, here's the problem with restlessness. The restlessness we feel that makes us feel so depleted every day also makes it very hard for us to look at these things on a regular basis. Didn't you feel this way? It's like it's coming at you in your feed and you're like, I can't deal with this right now, right? Like, I don't have the emotional capacity to deal with this. When we're already anxious and overwhelmed, the problems of the outside world are too much. And anyway, we don't have the time. We're too busy putting out fires in our own life to even think about doing something that's outward. And that's exactly the problem that our nation has, and part of how Trump has been bullying people into doing what he wants by threatening the things they're already worried about and pursuing, right? Threatening the finances of colleges and law firms and news organizations and companies. By threatening their bottom line, he convinces them to go along and keep their heads down, and certainly don't draw any attention to yourself from the government right now, because the government can step in and ruin things for you. Because that's what everyone's worried about, right? The next big merger, the getting those grants to come in. If that's our concern, we're not going to be able to fight the system or bring about change, if that's our dominant concern. Think about this guy. Jeff Bezos, everyone loves to pick on Jeff, one of the 5 richest people in the world, should be immune to attacks or any kind of threats from the president. But just made Amazon spend something like $75 million funding and then advertising the new Melania documentary, which was basically just a gift of money to the president and the first lady. Just a bribe, basically. Spent all that money on that to do that. If our primary concern is money, making more of it, holding on to it, or our security, or our reputation, anyone can secure our compliance or manipulate us by threatening those things. But learning contentment, learning to be content with little, and learning how to be content in life enables us to stand against the threats and against injustice. What if our life orientation was to seek God's kingdom and righteousness? What would we do? What could Jeff Bezos do with $240 billion, which is about what he has? It goes up, it fluctuates up and down. He could, if he wanted, actually pay the medical debt, all of the medical debt in the United States. The 40% some people in the US who have medical debt, 100 million some people, pay it all and still have $40 billion left over to live on. Or any number of other things that he could do. But you don't have to be rich to go do stuff. Look at how the residents in Minneapolis came together over the last few weeks. Just regular people without a lot of resources, without a lot of training. Many of them had never been to a protest before, showing up on behalf of their neighbors to stand up, protect people, and push back at the violence and intimidation and terror that was being inflicted there, and still is being, actually. Their acts have made a dramatic difference in the political situation in the country, and they have protected countless people. Some of us have a lot of inertia. I have so much inertia. I have the hardest time getting out to help others. Sometimes I'm like, I want to be at all the protests. And then when it comes, I'm like, I'm busy or I'm tired or whatever. I'm not a good yeller. I don't yell at protests. I realized at the last protest, I need a drum. I'm not that way. Some of us need to be proactive about scheduling outwardness into our lives. To sign up for the next protest or the next volunteer activity or the next place where you can love and serve someone else. Some of us, if we're not very political but we feel like we should be, join a political club. Those people there will show you how to be political, right? You'll learn a few things. Let's find at least some way to be seeking first God's righteousness and God's rightness in the world as a pathway to bringing about more contentment in our own lives, that we know we're part of something that's bringing meaning and change in the world. That is one way that we can grow in contentment, by being purposeful in working for justice and in loving others. A couple other quick ones as I wrap up. Another one is to prioritize relationships. I know we talk about this a lot, but it's so important. Relationships are key for mental health, for physical health, and for contentment in life. When our lives are busy, when it's full, when everything's coming at us, that's when we most need to be connecting with other people. And so it's worth it to prioritize them in the schedule, right? If you got to do it, schedule them in somewhere. This is my lunch where I hang with these two friends. This is my dinner where I hang with this other friend. Having something in your life on a regular basis that helps you hear from each other how you're doing. Ask some deep questions. How are you doing? How can I be there for you? Here's how I'm doing. This is what's been hard. We need that. In college, I met weekly with two friends, James and Peter. We met every week to, biblical names or something? I don't know. We met weekly to share what's going on in our lives, and we would actually pray for each other. We would meet in one of our dorm rooms. It was really meaningful and deep. We went through some really intense stuff together. It has been almost 30 years now. We live, 3 decades have passed. We live in different parts of California. We have busy lives. We each have families. We have busy jobs. We're still in touch. Last weekend, I went to a conference up in Berkeley hosted by the Center for Faith and Justice. My friend Peter runs the Center for Faith and Justice. He's the one who invited me to come to that conference. We hung out there, and then because he was really busy, we didn't get to talk, so I made him, I'm like, we're doing a Zoom in 2 days after this conference. So we just had our Zoom after the conference. I love that our friendship is still helping me to seek God's kingdom and righteousness in my life. How could you prioritize life-sustaining relationships in your life? My other suggestion is to prioritize rest and reflection. Another thing that Lorraine mentioned a couple weeks ago. It's important to block out those times of meaningful rest, or they too will get squeezed out when the treadmill speeds up. We need to block it in to fight the restlessness. Now, many of our rest activities, our rest, are not actually restful, right? We kind of just, we never give ourselves room to rest, but our body needs it. So instead, we just procrastinate for a long time before we do our work, and then we're doing we spend the whole time on TikTok, or like whatever, doing something like that, feeling guilty that we're not working yet, and it's not restful at all. It's so liberating when you're resting, and it's because you have it scheduled, and you're like, no, this is the time I rest. I'm not supposed to be working right now. I'm not even supposed to be thinking about it. Banish that thought. I'm enjoying my rest right now. It is a beautiful thing. 1 day a week, a half a day, a couple evenings, maybe just every night at a certain hour, you're like, I'm done, and then it's chill time. It's my time, or time to be with, hang out with a friend or something. We can be intentional about the kind of rest that actually helps us rest. Not doom scrolling, not all those things. There was a student once, she decided to take Saturdays off from work, but then her big key to that was she also took the day off from social media. She was super addicted to social media, and it did not do good things for her. And I remember her talking to me with just all this joy and enthusiasm. It is the best thing ever, my social media-free Saturday. I'm not saying these things are always bad. I'm just saying there's a whole technological industry out there that's making money off of figuring out how to addict you to chasing dopamine hits, and that is a restless activity if I ever heard of one. Is your rest working for you? And what if instead of consuming content the whole time we rest, we spend some time reflecting instead? Journaling or praying about our recent experiences, or just taking a walk and thinking about our life. We need reflective habits because they help us keep perspective. They help us notice, oh, I'm anxious about a lot. I need to bring that before God or deal with that or challenge those fears in some way. Oh, this week was really full, but it didn't feel great. Is there some way that my priorities are out of whack? How can you prioritize quality life, quality rest this semester? So I want to end with one last time, having you all turn to each other. I just want to ask, what are one or two things that you'd like to do to learn contentment this semester? Do that, and then in a moment we'll finish with one worship song.